Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News, South Florida Conservative News Service, southfloridaconservative.com, Monday, April 13th, 8:23 a.m. The trash man is very noisy this morning. But then again, he's not the only trash man in town. Those of you who are reading any type of news service, the mainstream and/or legacy and/or useless and/or Ministry of Propaganda, which is the local and national media, are touting the fact that Mr. Orbán, ex-president of Hungary's party, has lost control of the country of Hungary, and that this is a preview of what is going to happen to the United States in the midterm election, a warning shot, maybe even a roadmap for what is coming in the United States, since Viktor Orban and President Trump had relations, not like Eric Swalwell, but relations, which is what politicians do. You've probably heard it framed this way: Orban equals Donald Trump. Orban loses, therefore Trump style politics loses. Clear, simple, and absolutely wrong, because the media doesn't ever crack a book, look at a real article, or check into what the election was about in Hungary. Because what just happened in Hungary is not what the American media want you to think happened in Hungary. And more importantly, it's not something that translates cleanly into the American system of government, let alone the midterm election. Got real bright in here, didn't it? So today, we're going to break that down. Wow. Can't help it, guys. This is how the lighting's going to be. So we'll start with the basics. Orban didn't lose to a progressive slash socialist revolution, which is what Trump is up against. He lost to Peter Magyar, a man who came out of his own system. And that's critical. This was not left versus right. This was not open borders versus closed borders. This was not Hungary becoming Western Europe overnight. What Hungary just experienced was something very specific, a shift from one version of the same political framework to another version of it. Okay, so follow with me. Here's the point that gets buried in most coverage. The TISA party, the one that won, kept many of the same core policy positions that the media associates with Orban and by extension with Donald Trump. So let's go through them. All right, immigration, closing the borders, still strict. The border fence stays. Immigrants no es bueno. Mass migration, they are still opposed to it. National sovereignty, still important, but expressed in a different way. Energy policy, still pragmatic, not ideological. Cultural direction is not aggressively progressive, which means no DEI, no alphabet soups, none of that nonsense. So, what really changed over there other than Viktor Orban? What changed was the tone of the government, the management, because there were supposedly a number of issues on money, like we don't have them, right? The economic posture towards the EU, and most importantly, the system around the leader. So, everything, and I'll continue, but first and foremost, anyone who tells you that having it would be just like the same exact policies, but JD Vance is in charge. That's what they had in Hungary. So all those Republicans that are on the Bush side are still going to be frozen out. All those Democrats, which are actually socialists, can stop, as far as I have here from a viewer, masturbating like a bunch of baboons to the fact that they are going to win the midterms. So those of you who were doing that in front of a civilian, don't get so excited, because that is not what happened in Hungary. This is being used in the United States to draw the last dollars out of the civilians on the Democrat side, because the big money's already in, right? And also dumb big money, because there's a lot of that out there that wants to be on the winning side. So when the socialists take over, they don't get their throat cut. So the key distinction here is Hungary did not vote for let's reverse everything Orban did. Hungary voted for let's keep a lot of this, but we're going to run it differently. And that is a completely different event. And that is where the US comparison starts to fall apart, because we know the socialist plan, if they seize power again, is to destroy everything that Donald Trump has done in the last 4 years, plus the 4 years before that, plus run the man out of the country and or imprison and or kill him. That has been pretty much the party line. So what else doesn't go well? In Hungary, the election looked like a long-standing leader, yet a system had been in place for over a decade. Okay, they get to stay in office longer than we do. Internal fatigue, and economic friction tied to EU relations. And then the big one was a credible insider challenger who unified opposition voters. That last piece mattered more than anything. So basically, you were just changing the guy where everything else is kind of staying the same. In the United States, we already have two fixed camps. Unfortunately, there is no sudden emergence of a third unifying force. There is no collapse of fragmented opposition. There is no Magyar moment. The battlefield is already defined. The opposition to President Trump promises socialism, slavery, and a loss of your money, whereas the Trump party is pushing to increase the economic impact of the world in the United States as far as a manufacturing power, financial power, and that. Everybody gets a good job. Very similar to Huey Long's Every Man a King and a chicken in every pot. Think about it, right? But the comparison between these two governments would immediately break because the TISA party would not clearly map onto the US Democratic Party at all. This is all for you guys when you have to go to your faculty lounge and they tell you Trump's losing the midterm because of Hungary. On several key issues, especially immigration, they are actually closer to Republican positioning. This is the new people than Democratic orthodoxy. So what you're really looking at in Hungary, once again, two parties that are closer together on core national issues than the two major parties in the United States. They are the opposite of our situation. So if there is a lesson here, it's not ideological, it's structural. Orbán didn't lose because his ideas collapsed overnight. He lost because he'd been in power way too long. There were economic trade-offs that were becoming visible, and the system around here began to feel closed. And then critically, someone from inside of his own system made a credible case to replace him. That is not a left-wing surge. That is a system reset from within the same lane. So what does this mean for the United States? Very simply, you cannot take an election where both sides agreed on core national controls and apply it to a country where the parties fundamentally disagree on these controls. In Hungary, the argument was over how to govern. In the United States, the argument is still over what ideology will direct the country. So it was not the same type of election. It had no real relevance coming to the midterm. The next 2 or 3 days of news is complete lies and bullshit. And I just thought you should know about it now. And we just sort of ran this off real quick. But that was the case. So otherwise, have a great Monday, and we will talk to you later on. Goodbye.